Hello, I'm Dr. Mountain. It's a rainy weekend here in Alberta, and that's a really good thing because we've been in a drought for quite some time and the farmers need the rain. So what better day to talk about motorcycling if we probably won't go for a ride? I'm going to give a comprehensive review of my 2018 Kawasaki Versys-X 300, which I bought new at that time. And I think this motorcycle really deserves a chance. Now, motorcycling might seem like a funny prescription, but for patients of mine who own motorbikes, I've sometimes suggested they go for a motorcycle ride. It's sometimes referred to as wind therapy. It's such a great way to just clear your thoughts, and we have to remember to do things that are fun to support our mental, emotional well-being. A couple weeks ago, I turned over 20,000 kilometers. Now, I haven't owned as many motorcycles as Ian from Big Rock Moto. I think he said he's owned over 30, but I've had several motorcycles and varying different kinds, sport bikes, large cruising bikes. This motorcycle is unique. Even today, when I look, and I'm always checking and researching, I'm hard pressed to find something that would replace what this motorcycle can do. And I'll make a case for that. So I'll go over a few of the specs you can get for $7,000. Now, I know that's a lot of money for another vehicle. In Canada, motorcycle can't really be your only vehicle because we can have snow for several or many months of the year. If you look at it in the motorcycling world, it is an entry-level pricing. Some motorcycles cost well over $20,000. And I know it doesn't have all of the niceties, it doesn't have all the conveniences, it doesn't have a quick shifter, it doesn't have traction control, it does have ABS, and it has everything you need to have fun on a motorcycle. I've also made some additions to the bike, some add-ons, some accessories, and we'll go over that too. So let's start out. It's a parallel twin, it's 296 cc's, so Versys-X 300. It is very smooth. It gets very little vibration felt on the handlebars or the foot pegs. You can see the two exhaust headers there. It has a 19-inch front tire and a 17-inch rear. If you compare that to something like the Tenere 700, it has a 21-inch front tire and an 18-inch rear tire. And that gives it a little bit better approach angle to go over lumps and bumps. It would be a little bit smoother ride, a little bit more contact surface on dirt, etc. But this is a good compromise. A sport bike would usually have a 17-inch front and rear tire, so this is 19 to 17. The spoked spoked wheels give you strength with some flexibility, unlike a cast, which is very stiff and strong and good for racing and cornering hard, that kind of thing. But this here allows a little tiny bit of flexibility, and it's not brittle, so it's more designed for gravel and bumpy roads and this kind of thing. The website says long travel suspension. I think it's 5.1 inches on the front and 5.8 or something like that at the back. The Tenere 700, I think, is over 8 inches at the front, so that's very much longer travel, more like a dirt bike would be, which could handle a lot bigger bumps. But again, this is a good compromise. I don't remember what my CBR, my Honda sport bike was, but I think it was more like 3 inches of travel. So this bike is a good compromise on a lot of things in that regard. Okay, I'm just going to turn the bike on here, show you the dash. So it does have a gear indicator, and you can see I just went over the 20,000 kilometers. I like the analog tachometer. I'm going to tell you about a little trick for the ABS way to turn that off in a little bit, and doesn't show the range. So speaking of the parallel twin, the range on this, I have got well over 400 kilometers. And it's very fuel efficient. You can see my average, and that's actually riding not easy. I rode in very fast going traffic just the other day, and you know, you get up to close to 4 liters per 100 kilometer fuel consumption when you're riding quite quickly. You can see I'm almost out of fuel. I haven't turned the bike on, so there's no engine temperature. So it gives you all the basic things you need, trip A, trip B, and this would normally give you a range, which is reasonably accurate, and this would be your current liters per 100 kilometer fuel consumption. I'm not going, so it doesn't show anything, and then average. So this is one of the first changes I made to my new motorbike back in 2018, is I switched out the front counter sprocket to a JT sprocket that is 15 tooth. This is a 14 tooth. Now by doing that, I just got a little extension of first gear, which is made very, very short on this bike. And in sixth gear, I have the numbers here. In sixth gear, going from the 14 tooth to the 15 tooth, you get a reduction at 100 kilometers an hour from 7,400 RPMs down to 6,915. If you do the math, from 14 to 15 tooth, 107.14% change from the original. You can tell this is original because there's rubber on both sides. And the stock one doesn't have that rubber, so it's a tiny bit. You hear a little bit of chain clatter. Now, what I'm going to do this summer is I'm going to put this one back on because my chain after 20,000 kilometers is getting some stiff links, and made an order from Fort Knox. I've got a new chain. This is now a 44 tooth rear sprocket, and it gives very similar. One tooth change in the front going from 14 to 15 is close to a 3 tooth change in the rear. So this is a 2 tooth change. The stock rear sprocket is 46 teeth. So the reason I'm doing this is at the time with the new motorbike with the original chain, if you make just a 1 tooth change from a 14 to a 15, you don't need a new chain. You can take up the slack back here. When you go from the 2 tooth change, I'm pretty sure we have to shorten the chain. But because I'm putting a new chain on anyways, I thought now would be a good time to do that. It has come up a few times where people asked if that made a difference in fuel economy, and I believe it does. So 17-liter tank, and you saw my average was 3.7. I can get better than that if I'm tootling up and down or in 4th or 5th gear on gravel roads. I commonly will ride it. I'll look, and I'm riding around 2.8 liters per 100 kilometer. Okay, the next change I made was very quickly I found out the factory seat on this bike, unless they've changed it for 2022, is terribly hard. I've done 300-400 kilometers in a day, and after 100 kilometers my bum just so sore. So I bought a tall seat. I tried that, wasn't any more comfortable, and I appreciated the height though because I'm about 6'1". This is the foam for the stock seat and the stock seat cover. What I ended up doing is buying a seat concept seat, and I'll just take it off here. And I'm sure they make good products. I do not recommend the seat concept seat for the Kawasaki Versys-X 300. It has problems, and I contacted the company about it, and they asked if I was overweight, if I was over 200 pounds. I'm generally about 185 pounds. And they thought I was so heavy that it was making me slip forward. So what I ended up doing is, with the seat concept seat, I ended up buying a piece of foam. Here's the foam. This was some other type of exercise mat foam. I tried that, but I thought it would be like a memory foam, but it didn't work. This is just regular foam that I bought at a fabric store, and I put it on the front of the seat up here, and I cut it in, and what I end up doing is lifting the front of the seat. Now what happens is the fabric for the seat concepts cover ends up being a little tiny bit short, because what I had to do was build up the height of the seat because without that, when you would sit here, you always had the sensation that you're slipping forward, always slipping forward. It was so annoying. The other thing I did was I put little bumpers. I put little bumpers here and here, and I zip tied them on. These front rubber pillars on the bottom of the seat, they can then sit on there to help additionally raise the seat up just that little bit more. It's not hard to be more comfortable than the stock seat for this bike because it is terrible. So what I recommend is take the stock seat, pull the cover off. Yes, I did it all myself. I had to get a pneumonic, like an air stapler, to staple it back onto the plastic frame of the seat. And I would recommend, what you should do is just cut out a bit of this hard foam and add a little bit of this foam on top. It is a comfortable seat now. The way I've made it now, completely comfortable. I can ride pretty long distances and do okay. Okay, one of the next changes that I made, it took a while for it to come in, was I got this factory Kawasaki top box. I think it's actually made by GIVI or GIVI, however you say that. And every little piece is separate. Even this little backrest pad cost me an extra 90 bucks or something like that. But I do often carry a passenger, either one of my boys or my wife. And so it's a pretty good top box. I like how it opens up. I carry my earpiece, earplugs, a little sprayer, cleaner. I always carry rain pants. And it comes off if you turn the key and you press the button. There you go. One-handed operation. Comes right off, and that's what's left. Now, it does fit a large helmet. It will not fit my new helmet because my new helmet has a beak on it. But anyways, it's a good top box. I do want to say, when I got it, I tried to click it on, and right here, there's a little lip in there. The stock one that I mounted up myself had no lip cut into here. When I put the top box on, you should hear a nice click. If I go like this, you should hear a nice click. Yeah, well, and I was very excited, and I installed this top box. And it's just sort of swedged on there. And I thought, well, maybe that's how it goes. So I was going to take my son or somebody for a ride. They're very excited. Dad's new motorbike. And I thought, if I just pulled it, it would come right back off. I thought, that's odd. Anyways, it was a factory defect. They forgot to cut that in there. And that was a little upsetting to me because that's a pretty big safety issue. Hadn't I not double checked and my son or wife or somebody sitting there with their back against it and the thing popped off. So anyways, they just sent me a new one. And yeah, Japanese quality. I love Japanese motorbikes, and that's all I've ever owned. And everything else about the bike, you know, has pretty good quality. I'll go over a few other things in a bit where there's some areas that could improve upon, but that was kind of like, that's my own family sitting on, or friends or whoever sitting on the back there. That was unfortunate. Okay. The next accessory I bought and installed myself was the engine guards. They are a pain to install. All of the fairing has to come off, and there's a lot of hidden bolts and things in there. They are weak. They have done their purpose. Both sides are quite scratched up. But this one here sits very close to one of the radiator hoses, but there's only one screw on the top, one bolt, I should say, only one bolt on the top, right there. That's all. So it can bend up. There's nothing holding it at the bottom. The hard part for the install is not mounting that there. It is right here, up inside. It is attaching this mounting bracket system. That's the hard part. Once it's attached, then just this bolt and the side bolt takes the frame or the crash guard off. This here almost hits my shin. Every now and then it does, but it actually hasn't really bothered me there. But they're I have fallen a lot. Generally it's low speed, mud, snow. We're in Canada, so we encounter those things out in the mountains, and it anyways, they did their job. They saved the fairing, and I have no scratches on the bike, and it worked that way. But in terms of their strength, they're quite weak. I've had to take them off and bend them back into shape. Okay, the next upgrade I put on was the center stand, which I would highly recommend. It's just the Kawasaki one. There are other manufacturers that make it, but never had any problems with this one. Okay, the next upgrade I made after that was I changed out the stock windscreen to the GIVI or GIVI windscreen. The stock one to here, and boy, it's a hard angle with there. You can see the difference in height there, so it's probably an extra 5 inches or so in length. I really like this windscreen. The only disadvantage is, or I think this is one of the main limiting factors for off-roading or for going over very hilly terrain, because when you stand up, and this bike is very comfortable for me to stand on the, I find I don't need a riser bar. I think it works fairly well for standing. The foot peg position is nice. What happens is a couple of times I have hit my helmet. I actually broke one of the air vents on my helmet from hitting a bump and standing while going up a hill. And so I don't understand why every adventure motorcycle doesn't come with an adjustable windscreen. It makes no sense to me. You'd think it was the height, the clearance from the ground would be the rate limiter, and of course all those things are too. But from a very immediate practical perspective, I have to really be careful with this. So I do a lot of off-road riding, and a couple of times I've taken the tool with me and took the windscreen off and hit it and then put it back on at the end, but that's such a pain. I don't want to do that all the time. So anyways, you wouldn't think so, but this, you gotta watch. It's great, it gives you great coverage for rain, and I've ridden in snow, etc., and it helps keep the elements around you, but you can hit your helmet. Another change I made was I switched out, here are the factory foot pegs, and there's nothing really wrong with them. They're great for street riding. You can see these are SW Motec, and they do give a wider platform, and that's good. And then if you need a 8mm socket, and then I loosened it already, and then this rubber pad comes out, and you've got a real good foot peg for riding in muddy conditions. So while we're in this area, you will notice that my shift lever is mangled. Kawasaki, why do you not put a folding shift lever on this motorcycle? Yes, I know I've wiped it out, but it should fold here, that if this gets contact with the ground, then it won't break or bend. So it hasn't broken, but it's bent so bad. So I've looked, there are other motorcycles that have the same spline, but this length here is different. And so anyways, I am in search. If anybody knows where I can find a folding shift lever that's about the same length and will fit this and won't make contact with this shrouding here under the engine, I would much appreciate that. My brake lever has suffered the same kind of fate. You can see in here, it's bent too. I bent it so far out one day, and I actually have it tucked in a little bit, tiny bit closer to the fairing here than would come stock, and that's done as an attempt, if I do fall, so I've gotten used to that, to put my foot over just a little bit closer to the bike in order to hit the brake there. The Barkbuster handguards are awesome. They do save your levers. I have fallen a couple of times where it made my throttle stick, so I always carry the whatever size that Allen key is now, if I need to readjust that, because it got jammed up in there and then my throttle was stuck. I do have Oxford heated grips, and awesome. I think I've ridden almost every month of the year. I went out just for a short ride, maybe in February on a warmer day These have really been a great thing to protect the levers and protect my hands. Okay, the other thing I was going to show you was a trick that I mentioned regarding the ABS. So when I turn the bike on, the engine light and the ABS light are on. There's a disclaimer here. I've tried this several times and I've never had any trouble with it, but the dealership didn't know anything about this, and it's kind of a little hack you can do. If you want to turn the ABS off, if you're riding in dirt and you're finding it a pain, now it shuts it off the front and the back. And sometimes it would be nice just to have it ABS off the back so you can use your foot brake and lock the back up a little bit from time to time. It does shut it off on both. So I ended up not using this that often, but here's a little trick. If you put the bike up on the center stand, now it won't start with the kickstand down, so you put the kickstand up, the bike will start. Okay, so I'm going to turn the bike on. I have the center stand down and the kickstand up. So I'm going to put it in gear, and you'll see when I go over 20 kilometers an hour, the ABS light will stay on. Normally, forget the exact, it's about 15 kilometers an hour, I think, when you start driving. Normally, when you take off on the street, the ABS light will go off very quickly within, it's somewhere around 15. I should have looked at that before I did the video. But you'll see here, the ABS light will stay on. So I'm going to throttle and hold the brake just for extra safety, so the bike, just in case it ever jumped off the stand here. So you can see the ABS light stayed on, which means no anti-lock brake system. So where that has been troublesome for me is going down a very gravelly, prolonged, steep hill. The anti-lock brake system just kicks in and kicks in and kicks in, and it's very hard to stop. And sometimes, or corners, sometimes you want to actually be able to lock up the wheel or have the wheel come to a stop, and with anti-lock brake system it won't let it do that. So when you're going very fast on the street, the anti-lock brake system can give you a lot shorter braking distance because it doesn't let the bike lock up, and there's huge amounts of safety features to that. We're out in the wilderness and you're going down a very steep gravelly rocky hill. Sometimes that anti-lock brake system is a pain in the butt because you feel like you just can't slow down and you go faster and faster and faster. I've only had a few of those situations in my life because this is not a hardcore dirt bike and I'm not doing crazy stuff, but I have had that experience where it was a little bit of a scare. Hard to slow the bike down. So anyways, there is a hack for you. I don't think it causes any type of electrical problems, this kind of thing, but do it at your own risk, of course, because I'm not sure if there's any long-term problems to the bike of doing that. As far as I know, there isn't. As soon as you shut the bike off and turn it back on and were to start up again, then the anti-lock brake system comes right back on. One of the last accessories that makes this bike a complete package in my mind is saddlebags. This is from SW Motec, Sys-Bag 15. It is a 15-liter saddlebag. There's one for each side, so there's two of them. Rolled down top, it has a waterproof liner in there, and yeah, 15 liters of stuff. My wife and I have done some weekend motorcycling trips, and we packed between that and the top box. We packed our stuff in here, and yeah, it has this 3-point mounting system. Goes on like that. And then the only thing it doesn't have is a lock, which I wish it had. The hard panniers do scare me, like if I get my foot caught back and crushed or something under them, whereas these are soft. So it's a small bike. You can't put huge saddlebags on them, but it's the same size even for the other side where the muffler is. So anyways, I really like these. They're a huge upgrade and make the bike. It's kind of becomes now like my Swiss Army knife of motorcycles. I guess that means it does nothing well, but it can do a whole bunch of things. I should mention the tires. The stock tires were okay. I used them right till they wore out. They were IRC Trail Winner, I believe, and they were fine. These are quite an upgrade. My rear tire is the Michelin Anarchy Adventure, and it's okay. It's probably a 20% off-road or gravel and an 80% on-road. In muck, they are terrible, but maybe the front tires aren't much better. The front tires are the Dunlop Trail Max Mission. That specific wording like that. For a 19-inch tire, there's not much road noise. I don't really hear the road noise with it. And they're pretty grippy tire. On a sport bike, a racing bike, I think you'd want the same style of tire on the front and the back, the same tread patterns. Here, I think it's okay to have, and good practice, of a slightly more aggressive front tire when you're going to be doing some dirt or some gravel kind of riding. The Trail Max Mission, the Dunlop tire here, is extremely heavy and stiff. It was a lot of work to change that tire. We did it on the sunny side of the house on a warm summer day, and my neighbor helped me, and I don't think I could have done it by myself with all the tricks and tips that I knew how. I'm not a motorcycle tire changing expert, but I do know how to do it, and the back one was not hard with the Michelin Anarchy Adventure. So it may have slightly changed the handling of the bike a tiny bit, at a less nimble, maybe, possibly. It's hard to compare that, but I think also that as a downside, the plus side is on gravel, I find it tracks a little bit more straight and it doesn't wobble quite as much as maybe the stock tires did, because it is heavy. When you get that momentum going, that spinning rotation, then it wants to continue on the track that it's going. So they might be close to 60% road, 40% off-road. I know online some people have said 50-50. I doubt that, but they're pretty good all-around tire. Their tread pattern here on the 19-inch tire, and they're fairly new. The Anarchy Adventures here, the Michelins, they're a little bit more worn. They're starting to flatten a little bit. This is one of the main reasons I like this bike. Now imagine mud, slope down where the handlebars are actually below where the tires are. Now you got to pick this up. This bike, stock, is 385 pounds. Compare that to the CB 500X is 440 pounds. The Tenere 700 is 452 pounds. And the KLR 650 is more than 460 pounds. I have a few accessories on here. It will be the center stand and the rack and that. It's probably a number of pounds over 385 pounds, the engine or the crash guards, this kind of stuff. But it's still going to be under 400 pounds. So we've got 60 pounds on the KLR, for example, difference to pick up. And this, what I'm about to do, is not a representation of a perfect technique, and it's not a demonstration on how you should pick up a bike. I'm just going to show you that it's not that hard to pick up. So this is a great way to lift up the bike like that. Or I'm going to show you, like, even without great technique, it's just not that it takes away fear.
I'm not that afraid to go down a trail that has a little extra mud or dirt or rocks, and I'm not automatically turning around and cutting my adventure short. Who wants to cut their adventure short? So if you're considering an adventure bike, think of something like this, where it can go a lot of places, and it's a very capable machine. It is fast enough, it has adequate power, it has long fuel range, excellent fuel economy. So, something to think about.
Well, I hope I've made the case for you to consider this bike. It is a mini adventure bike because it's 300cc, and I guess that's sort of the elephant in the room is, does it have enough power? I know the RPMs are high. You can see the red line is quite high on this bike. But it can drive 100 kilometers, 110 kilometers an hour all day at 7,000 some RPMs, no problem. It does not overtake well above 100 kilometers an hour. It just doesn't. And I think the power is completely adequate. So that's the elephant in the room, is, does it have enough power? I think the main reason I would want more power is mainly for ego reasons, so I could just... I'm not saying to speed, I'm saying just for that zippy feeling. It doesn't have much pull. So if you compare that to other sport bikes, if you enjoy riding for that pull, that power sensation, that thrill, this will take you anywhere, but it doesn't have that. Or if you're a new motorcyclist, it will for a while, but then you will grow out of that feeling. It is not powerful compared to bigger motorcycles. If you have a leader bike, I don't know if you ever grow out of that thrill. It will always pull your arms off when you pull hard on the throttle. So I think it is completely adequate. It does a whole bunch of different things. It's a very capable motorcycle and something to consider. It's a great fun way to get out away from the stressors of the world and of course be safe. I have a bright colored helmet. And both my helmets and my wife's helmet, we all have bright high-vis helmets. Be safe, be seen. Don't dress in all black clothing and black helmet and wonder why people can't see you if you're being invisible. So try to be seen. I've never had any really close calls. Of course, there's always times where you have to use defensive driving, but be safe out there. Do have fun. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe.